Howdy, Pi here with part 4 of New Career Kickstart. Now, this video is a remake of the original part 4 video, which was recorded in August of 2018. It is now May of 2019. And back then we were on version 1.4 of Kerbal. And today KSP is on version 1.7. So they have reskinned some parts. So some of the parts will look different than they did in the part 3 video and the previous 3 videos, but all the parts function the exact same. Also, I wanted to redesign the rocket that we're going to land on the moon with to make it more simple for new players to build. So the amount of cash I have and the science points will maybe look a little different than they did at the end of the part 3 video, but I've restarted this career playthrough up to this point, so we're at the exact same place that we were at the end of part 3, which is we're about to do flight number 5 of a new career, and we're going to land on the moon. Before we do that, we need to spend some cash and upgrade 2 things on our Space Center. The tracking station and mission control, and we must do both of these to be able to unlock maneuver nodes. So mission control 75,000, we'll do that, and the tracking station is 150,000, so we'll do that. We also need to unlock some more parts, so we need to spend some of our science down here at the R&D. We need to unlock this one, General Construction, for 45 points. We need to unlock Basic Science. That will give us a new science experiment, the Science Junior, which we've not used yet. It will also give us batteries, because we don't have solar panels yet, of course, and these batteries will be all that we'll need to do this mission, so we'll grab that one. We also want heavy rocketry, because that will give us 2 new liquid fuel engines. The Poodle, which looks a little different than the old version. We have 2 combustion chambers now, but it functions the exact same. And the Skipper engine, which they did not change. It looks the exact same as in the old version. So we'll grab that. We'll also grab fuel systems, because that gives us the matching diameter fuel tanks for those new engines we just unlocked, the 2.5 meter diameter. It also gives us fuel lines, which will come in really handy for this rocket, and we will use them. So let's grab that. So just what you see here that we have unlocked is enough to build a rocket that will comfortably take us to the moon and back. And I mean comfortably. In fact, it's going to be overbuilt a little bit. Mainly to give us a lot of extra fuel in case we have to make some mid-course correction burns or whatever. If we need to, for instance, you don't want to land near the rim of a crater, so if we happen to land, be coming down near the rim of a crater, we have enough fuel to manually fly to a flat landing zone. All right. So since we are going to the moon on this mission, let's check and see. Well, let's actually review right quick. So we're on flight, we're about to do flight number 5, and we've only done 5 contracts in this new career. Right, 4 of these were offered at the beginning of the game when we first started. Scientific data from Kerbin, launch our first vessel, escape the atmosphere, and orbit Kerbin. So we did those first 4, and then we did one more, which was this explore the moon, which all they wanted was a flyby. So we've completed these 5 so far in our new career. So let's see what is available. So there is some RNG associated with the contract system, so you may not have in your career, in your playthrough, at this point you may not have a specific contract that deals with the moon. And I'm looking, and I don't see anything that deals with the moon, right? Rescue from orbit of Kerbin, tourist, more tourist, another rescue, this Explore Kerbin, that's a rendezvous, and we don't really want to do that right now. We want to go and land on the moon. So we're not even going to have a contract for this mission, but we're going to go ahead and fly this mission, because after we come back, we'll check back here and see if there are any new contracts that have popped up that relate to the moon, and I'm willing to bet that there will be. So even though we don't have a specific contract to go to the moon, we're going to go ahead and do it anyway on our flight number 5. So let's go ahead and build this rocket. And what we're going to do is, this is an earlier version. Let's delete that. We'll start from scratch. Actually, what we want to do is start from what we used on the last mission, which was to do the flyby of the moon. We'll start with that rocket first. And we're going to ditch everything below this fuel tank. Right? We're going to keep all of this, the fuel tank, decoupler, heat shield, science bay, experiments, or not science bay, service bay, sorry, capsule and parachute. Okay? So right now we're going to build the actual lander that's going to land on the moon and then also bring us back to Kerbin. So first thing we need to do is add batteries that we just unlocked. So we're going to spam 6 of these batteries, right? And we're going to mount these up here like that. Just like that. And those 6 batteries will be more than we need, more than enough to do this whole complete mission. Alright? Now we need to go to the fuel tanks, and the smallest liquid fuel tank, the T100. We're going to go 4 times symmetry, and we're going to surface attach these. We're just going to put those up against that other fuel tank like that, kind of near the bottom of it, not all the way down, but about like that. Now surface attach means you can surface attach any fuel tank to any other fuel tank. It is a structural rigid connection. However, with this particular fuel tank, there's a graphics glitch, so it kind of clips into this fuel tank. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to go to the Move tool, turn Angle Snap off. I'm going to drag that out where it actually should be. And it only happens with this particular fuel tank. Any other fuel tank that you surface attach to, it should look like that. Wherever the contact area is the only point. It should not clip into the other fuel tank. You know what I mean? So there we go. Now by surface attaching, we don't need fuel lines, we don't need decouplers. Surface attachment, the way this works is all 5 of these fuel tanks are now just one big collected fuel tank. So why did we put them on the outside like that? Why didn't I just stack some more tanks underneath here, or another one of these directly underneath? Because one of these is equal to 4 of these small ones. The reason is we want a wide footprint for landing on the moon. So now we have a nice wide footprint. In case we do happen to land on a little bit of slope terrain, we'll be much less likely to tip over. So let's go ahead and put landing legs on this thing. And I'm going to mount these 4 times symmetry, angle snap turn on. I'm going to mount these as low as I can get them on this fuel tank, which is about right there. Now it looks like that it is not attached right here, but it is, because it looks like there's 2 separate attachment points on the landing leg, but it's actually all one attachment point. So yeah, it is firmly attached. However, we will add, we'll put struts, we'll strut each fuel tank, these outer fuel tanks to each other, just to give us a little bit more structure. Like that. Alright. Now we're going to be using 2 of the 909 engines for this lander. Except I don't want the shroud on there. Dang it. Come on. Yeah, I want the bare engine. Now, if I go 2 times symmetry down here and I try to attach it, it's going to put 4 engines on there because these 4 tanks, or these tanks were attached in 4 times symmetry. So you have to go to single symmetry, put them on one at a time, like that, like that. Now also I want more clearance between the bottom of the landing legs and the bottom of the engines. So I'm going to go to the move tool again, turn angle snap back off, and I'm going to tuck in these engines a little bit up inside like that. About like that. And that will give me a little bit more clearance between the bottom of my landing legs and the bottom of these engines, right? Okay, there we go. Now, like I said, we don't need fuel lines. Both of these engines, each engine will draw fuel evenly from all 5 of these fuel tanks. Remember, as far as those engines are concerned, we just have one fuel tank here, right? It's all the same. We do want to put a new science experiment that we unlocked on there, and we're going to put 4, because as far as the Science Junior is concerned, it'll be the first time that they have been to these new biomes, 4 different biomes. So that's why we're taking 4. Because we're taking a pilot, we want to be able to use SAS. We're not taking a scientist. I do, however, want to, on the landing legs, right-click, and right here where it says spring damper, I want to turn up the springs and the damper strength, like that, because I want the legs to be more stiff when we land. And I also want to start retracted, like that. Now I will put nose cones on the top of these, like that. And right there, that is our complete moon lander. And it only weighs 8.2 tons. Alright? But now we need to build a lifter. So I'm going to raise this up in the bay. This will be flight number 5. Now, we're going to build a dedicated transfer stage. And what that means is we're getting into orbit of Kerbin first, and then we'll have a stage that will take us from Kerbin orbit out to the moon. And then once we're at the moon, get into orbit of the moon, and the transfer stage will also do the initial descent burn down to the surface. Alright, but I think I forgot to check contracts. Yeah, so let me save this. Let's go back out. Since we are going to the moon, we did check contracts. That's right, because we did not have a moon contract. Yeah, that's what it was. Alright. Yeah, so we do not have a moon contract, but we're still going to land on the moon, right? Because that will actually seed the RNG system, right, for the contracts. Alright, so to build our transfer stage, we want to use a decoupler right in the middle, like that. We also want to use the adapter, structural adapter piece, and this almost has no mass, 0.1 tons. It just is an adapter from the 1.25 parts to the 2.5. Then we want to add a Rockomax. The Rockomax, well, they're all X200, but the Rockomax-16, that particular fuel tank, we want that right there. And the Poodle engine, like that. And right there, that is our transfer stage, okay? But we need another decoupler under that. Now we're going to build the lifter that's going to get all this into orbit. So we go back to the fuel tanks and we pick the Rockomax-32. See here? And we want 2 of these. Like that. And then underneath that we need the skipper engine that we unlocked. Right there. Now we are going to be using side boosters, 2 liquid fuel boosters, so we're going to go 2 times symmetry on the radial decouplers. And we'll put those on the lower tank right there, kind of even with this line right there, like that. And we'll go back to the Rockomax -32. Like that. But we do need a little bit more. Let's go ahead and do the Rockomax -8 fuel tank underneath like that. And then 2 more of the skipper engines down here like that. So it will sit on the launch pad on these 2 engines just fine. We don't need launch clamps or anything. However, I do want to strut those boosters to the center core. So I'm going to go in here and do a strut 2 times symmetry right there, kind of up to there. Same thing on the other side. Kind of like that. Okay, I also want to put fins on the center core of this. So we'll just use the, what is it? The AVT1 winglet. You know, it does not actually move. It does not have movable surfaces, but we want 4 times symmetry on that. And yeah, we want that kind of off to the side. Let's see, kind of like right there. Okay, it looks like that strut is kind of clipped into. You know, I don't really like that, so I'm just going to change that. It's triggering my OCD. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, now we have 4 fins on our center core. Now we don't have the 2.5 nose cone, so we can make our own if we use the structural adapter piece right here. And again, this thing only weighs 0.1 tons, so yeah, we're not adding hardly any mass. And then use the regular nose cone that we have on top like that. Now we do want to use our fuel lines. Fuel lines are directional, so connect first to the side booster and then connect to the center core. Actually, hang on. Put this up a little bit more like that, go straight across. And it really doesn't matter. You can attach it to this upper tank or this lower tank. It really doesn't matter because these 2 tanks are all one tank, right? But as you can see, there are little arrows pointing the direction of the fuel flow. So yeah, we want two fuel lines, one from each booster to the center core, like that. Now, you don't really have to do these extra struts, but we will strut from each of the top of each side booster up to like the bottom of that fuel tank right there. Like that. And then also we want a couple of struts from the bottom of this adapter, like right down here, up to the bottom of those 2 fuel tanks. And we just need 2, we don't need all 4. Kind of like that. And right there, that is the whole rocket. That is the whole moon rocket right there. It will comfortably get us to the moon and back. Alright, but we need to check our staging. We want all 3 engines to ignite at launch, so we drag that down there. Right? And then the 2 boosters jettison right there. Center engine continues burning. And the center core engine drops away right there. At the same time, we want our poodle to ignite, which is our transfer stage. And once that burns out, we jettison that. We jettison that right there, and at the same time we want both of our 909 engines to ignite, so we do that. And then we have the single decoupler on top and the capsule and the parachute. Now, because the whole bottom part of this lander will be jettisoned, that means I have to EVA and take the data out of these Science Juniors before we jettison that, right? Obviously, because I don't want to lose my science. Alright, there we go. That is our moon rocket. Let's take it to the launch pad. We're just going to do standard equatorial orbit of Kerbin, because if your orbit of Kerbin is equatorial, if you try to stay exactly on this east line as you get into orbit, that is the same plane as the moon is orbiting Kerbin. So it will be much easier to get a moon encounter the closer you are to an equatorial orbit. So always activate the SAS, and I'll turn on my resource panel stage view. And I'm going to move the camera like this so that we can see the clean separation. That's why we mounted the boosters on the north-south sides of our rocket versus the east-west, because we don't want any chance of the boosters coming back and impacting that center core, right? So this will be full throttle all the way to orbit. Ready in 3, 2, 1, launch it. Pretty nice thrust to weight ratio coming off the pad. And we'll still go up to about 1,000, then we'll start gently tilting over to the east, over to 45 degrees relative to the horizon, which is about right here. There's 1,000, actually 1,200, so, which is no big deal. I mean, around 1,000, start tilting. But don't tilt too aggressively, of course. Just tap on the D key. We don't want to tilt too far outside of that yellow prograde marker. Not too far, because this. Hang on, I want to show something here. This particular rocket, because of the way we built our lander, we have a higher cross section of drag, a higher surface area on top of the rocket, so that when these boosters jettison, let's look at it from the side here. When these boosters jettison, because we're tilting over this way, right? We have a lot of drag on the top of this rocket, so that's why we don't want to be too far outside of this prograde marker, because when those boosters jettison, it's going to try to flip this rocket backwards on us. Okay, we have to be ready to counteract that. Because the center engine we have, all three engines have gimbals, so that's going to help us. But also what's mainly going to help us is if we're, the center dot of our attitude indicator is kind of inside that circle of the prograde marker. We're almost over to our 45, and we're coming up on booster jettison. So let's just hold what we've got right there. And look how clean that was. Perfect. And the rocket did not try to flip out. So if you build this rocket and the first time you fly it, it flips out on you, yeah, it flipped out on me too. And it still does from time to time if you're not careful. So yeah, it just takes a little practice. So there we are, tilted over about 45 degrees relative to the horizon, right? There's the horizon back there. So let's go to map view. Let's keep an eye on this apoapsis. Let's turn on the new display panel that they added in the latest update, the 1.7. Now our AP is above 50, so I'm going to go ahead and start tilting over almost all the way horizontal. I'm going to push that AP up to 80. It looks like this side of our trajectory is drooping down a little bit to the south, so I'm going to do a little bit of a correction here on the nav ball by going a little bit to the north and then come back up to that east line. Makes our trajectory nice and flat with the moon's orbit, which is right above the equator, remember. Looking good. Just let it go up to 80, and then we'll cut throttle. And then we'll coast on up to that AP and then get the rest of the way into orbit. 78, 79,000, 80. Cut throttle. Here we are. Alright, now I'm going to time warp up to that AP. And then I want to start burning full throttle horizontal right on that AP marker. And then if the AP marker starts creeping ahead of my ship, then I'm going to tilt over into the brown on the nav ball a little bit. Here we go, full throttle, go. And I'm still trying to stay right on that east line as I do this. And I'm watching my blue trajectory line start when it starts wrapping around the back side of the planet. I'm going to throttle back. If the AP lags behind my ship like it's doing a little bit right now, then I'm just going to tilt back into the blue of the nav ball a little bit. Okay, let's throttle back because that trajectory is starting to wrap around the planet. And when I see that PE marker appear through the planet on the other side over there, then I'm going to throttle back some more. There it is. Tilt back into the blue, get that AP back up even with us. And then the AP and the PE swap positions, boom, cut throttle. So we have an 83 by 80 orbit. Not perfect, but yeah, certainly good enough. Now, at this point, even though I have fuel left in this stage, right, these two fuel tanks, I'm going to go ahead and jettison that because we have a dedicated transfer stage. That's going to be doing the rest of the burn, okay, to get us to the moon and then actually into orbit of the moon. Now, this will be space junk, yes, but me personally, I just go to the tracking station to delete my space junk. So, yeah, there we are. So just like when we did our moon flyby, we want to now if you zoom in here, let me do it this way. If you zoom in and you're focused on the ship like this, right, when you zoom in, I like to be I like to be focused on the planet, so I'm going to double click on the planet, and then I'm going to rotate the camera, look straight down on the North Pole, and then zoom out so that I can see the whole orbit line of the moon. Now, it just so happens the moon is pretty much where we want it to be, but suppose it's not, you know. Suppose it's like way over here. Just right click and drag the camera so that the moon is between the 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock positions. So right about there. Now we want to put a maneuver node here. I'm going to time warp just to get our ship out of the way. There. Now I want my maneuver node down here at 6 o'clock. And it just so happens to be right where my PE is, which doesn't matter, because if your orbit is nearly circular like we have now, your PE could be right here and then your AP would be right here. It doesn't matter where the AP and the PE are. As long as your orbit is fairly circular, it does not matter. What does matter is we want a maneuver node down here at 6 o'clock of our blue orbit line. And we see the new display that pops up, that was added in version 1.7 of KSP. Now there are two tabs on top of that display. One says Text Maneuver Editor. You can type in the exact delta V value that you want. I don't really like it. I use the Graphical Maneuver Editor, this tab here, which it has a little display that looks just exactly like the maneuver node, right? So yeah, I think that works out better. So yeah, what we want to do, the moon between 2 and 3 o'clock, maneuver node down here at 6 o'clock on our orbit line. I'm just going to pull gently on the prograde tab, and we'll see that AP climbing up to 12 o'clock. Now when the gold dotted line breaks open, that's when you have your moon encounter. So watch. And just be gentle when you pull on this because it goes quick. In fact, back off. The higher the AP goes, back off on your pulling on that maneuver node. Okay, right there, it broke open. We have a purple PE marker. By definition, that means we have a moon encounter. Let's go right here. Let's left click on the moon and go to focus view. And that will show a predicted flight path, right? That purple dotted line. Now that PE is 1.6 million away from the moon. I like it to be around 200. So I'm going to open up, the maneuver node closes when we did that. I'm going to open up the maneuver node again, just click on it, and it's kind of hard to see, but just click right there and it will open up. Or in the new maneuver function here, we have an arrow. We have two arrows. The one that says next maneuver, you can click that and that will open up your maneuver node again. Now what I need to do right now, this burn is costing us 836 delta V. I just want to add in some more delta V's and that will make this PE get closer. So I'm going to mouse over the prograde tab on the maneuver node right here, or I could do it right here also and just use the scroll wheel on my mouse just to add in, keep adding some more prograde, and you see that PE number shrink down. And I want it to be about 200, and that's just kind of an arbitrary number that I picked. It's a nice round number. It's not too close, it's not too far. Of course, you can experiment with whatever value that you like, whatever works best for you. But yeah, 200 is a good, nice round number for beginners starting out. We have a slider right here that will change the increment value each time your mouse wheel clicks. We have an increment value that we can change, so we can make more finer adjustments for each click of the mouse wheel. So I'm gonna drop that down, and I want this to be 200. Okay, right there. 200, 388. Perfect. Now, this burn is only costing us 849 delta V. Generally, a maneuver to the moon would cost between, just a ballpark, 850 to 860, anywhere in that range, and we're actually doing 849, so yeah, we're on the good side of that. All right, so we need to orient to that dark blue marker on the nav ball, which is the maneuver location, like that. Oh no, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do focus back here. We're still focused on the ship though. I want to be focused on the planet, so double click, and let's warp to next maneuver. And this says it's going to be a 57-second burn at full throttle, and the bottom display is a countdown timer for when to start the burn. Now we have drifted off a little bit from our maneuver attitude, so I'm gonna straighten that back up like that. And so we have a countdown timer here, 46, 45. I'm going to warp ahead a little bit. There we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, full throttle. Now we do have apoapsis and periapsis numbers here in this the new display that they added. So it's kind of like Kerbin Engineer functionality. However, I recommend for new players you stay in map view during most of your engine burns, because that way you can actually see how the trajectory is changing. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more informative. You'll learn actually what's going on more if you stay in map view. However, I do like to go back to focus view for this part. And remember, the AP starts going faster and faster the higher it gets, so you can back off on your throttle a little bit once it starts climbing up there. So I'm going to back off on my throttle. And then the blue line, the blue trajectory line, will break open, and then I'm going to cut my throttle. Boom, right there. So right here, the purple dotted line, that's the predicted flight path from that maneuver we created. And right now, the gold line is the actual flight path. So I'm going to delete that maneuver right here. And what I want to do is just keep burning. Because remember, I want this just a very, very small amount of throttle. I want this number to be 200. A little bit more. Just a tiny, tiny amount of throttle. 205 right there. That's good. We'll stick with that. Now also, let's look edge on at the moon's orbit line. Make it completely flat, and we notice that there we have the moon's orbit line is completely flat, which means we're looking right at we're in the same plane as the moon's equator, which is the same plane as Kerbin equator. But look at our actual flight path. So we're coming in a little bit high on this side, and you can see we're drooping down on this side. I want my flight path to be exactly equatorial with the moon, so that once we get there, we're going to do a retrograde burn at the PE, and that will get us into orbit of the moon. But I don't want an inclined orbit of the moon. I want it pretty much equatorial. Okay? So the way we fix that, we put a maneuver about halfway out to the moon called a mid-course correction. And if I can get it to right there. And it really doesn't matter. Sometimes it's kind of tricky to, let me focus back here for a second. Sometimes it's kind of tricky to actually get your, to get it to place the maneuver node. So wherever you can get it, that little dot on at the point of your cursor, wherever you can get that little dot to show up, anywhere on this line, that's fine, because you can drag this thing wherever you want it. And where we want it is right about there, right about halfway between Kerbin and the moon. Now I'm going to go back to focus view on the moon. Where is it? Right there. Which closes the maneuver node again, but remember, we can just click again on it right here to open it back up. Now what I want to do is look at the orbit, look at the moon's orbit, exactly flat, edge on. Kind of like, it's hard to do sometimes depending on how sensitive your mouse is. There. Yeah, so what I want to do is I just want to use the pink triangles, one or the other, and use my scroll wheel until the purple dotted line, which is underneath the gold line right now, until the purple dotted line is nice and flat and even with the moon's equator. Alright, so I'm just going to pick this one. It doesn't matter which one you pick. What matters is which direction you scroll on your mouse. And if it goes the wrong way, just scroll the other way. Now I'm going to turn up the sensitivity right here, the increment value a little bit. Okay, so that's going the wrong way, right? So I'm going to scroll the other way. Now I'm going to turn the sensitivity down a little bit, like that. And it still won't be exactly perfect, but yeah, you can see the purple dotted line here. It's pretty much exactly in line with the moon's equator. Certainly much better than we had before, right? And that burn is only going to cost me 3.7 delta V, so it's a no-brainer. It's not going to cost much fuel at all. So let's go ahead and warp to next maneuver. And the timing on this burn, as far as what the timers say, it's really not critical at all. But I do need to be oriented in the proper attitude, so I'm going to follow that dark blue arrow on the nav ball to the dark blue marker, which happens to be right on top of the pink triangle. which in this case it looks like it's going to be an anti-normal burn. In other words, relative to Kerbin, the nose of my rocket is pointed south, right? Pointed down. That's what anti-normal means. Normal means the nose of your rocket is pointed north relative to Kerbin, or whatever sphere of influence you're in, the moon or another planet or whatever. However, we are in career mode, right? So at this point, I'm in a new biome. It's called Space High over Kerbin. It's the first time that we've been there with these Science Juniors. So I need to do a Science Junior experiment right now. I'm going to start with this one. Observe Materials Bay. It's called Materials Bay on here, but it's the Science Junior. I don't know why they do it that way. So here we are in Space High over Kerbin. So we'll keep that. Now, all the other science that we have in here is, we've already done this biome with all of these experiments in our crew report and EVA report, all of that. So we don't need to do any other science right now. I need to do the burn, however, so I'm just going to go ahead and just use a tiny bit of throttle. And I'm going to watch my gold line, and I want my gold line to be exactly overlapping the purple dotted line. Tiny, tiny bit of throttle. Boom, right there. Delete that maneuver. And yeah, there we have an inclination of pretty much 0. Like I said, it won't be perfect, but yeah, much, much better than it was, right? Exactly in line with the moon's equator. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and warp to here. That will put us in the moon's sphere of influence, which is a new biome. It's called Space High over the Moon. Anything above 60K is Space High over the Moon. And the gold line turns blue. There we are. So now it's time for the next Science Junior. Space High over the Moon. And again, we've already done all other science experiments in this particular biome, so we're good to go there. At this point, I'm going to go ahead, let me switch back so you can see it. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and orient to retrograde, because we're going to have to do a retrograde burn at our PE to put us into orbit of the moon. And so we see on our transfer stage, we still have pretty much almost a half a tank of fuel in that transfer stage. So yeah, plenty of fuel. Alright, let's go ahead and warp, and we can use a maneuver node for this if you want to. You don't have to, because by this point in our new career, if you followed along in the other videos, you pretty much know that to get into orbit, you need to do a retrograde burn at your PE. So yeah, we're not even going to use a maneuver node. I'm just going to warp to my PE. Wait for the SAS to flip us back over to retrograde on the nav ball. And I'm just going to do, we can do a full throttle burn at the beginning and then back off on the throttle. And I'm just paying attention to what happens to our blue trajectory. And I'm going to cut throttle right there, so we have 203 by 194. Not perfect, but yeah, it's perfectly enough for us right now. Okay, now I want to land in the daylight, on the daylight side, so I'm going to warp over here on the nighttime side. And then we're still on retrograde hold, I'm going to do another retro burn. And what that will do is, remember, simple orbital mechanics. If your orbit is nearly circular, wherever along your orbit you burn retro or prograde, it's either going to shrink or raise the opposite side of your orbit. So I'm burning retro right here. That means directly opposite where I burn, this side of my orbit will start to shrink down straight towards the center of the body of the moon in this case. And the PE will slide around to right here, and then it will start dropping. Alright, so let's do that. Just a little bit of throttle. And we're going to lower that PE down to like 9,000. And I'll tell you why here in just a second. Okay, 8,000. I'm gonna raise it back up because originally I said 9. So yeah, flip back over to prograde, and we'll raise this back up to 9 just because I said 9 originally. And the reason we want this no lower than that is because there are hillsides and kind of mountains that stick up. 9,800, that's fine. There are mountains that stick up as high as 10,000, I believe, on the moon, and so when you're in equatorial orbit, there's a chance that you could run into something if you're pretty low. But the reason I made it so low is because what we're going to do is we're going to orbit around some more. We're going to do another retro burn once we get around here, because at this point in our orbit right now, we're going to be more or less going horizontal across the surface, right? So we want to kill off, and our speed will increase as we approach the PE. So I want to kill off most of my horizontal velocity while I'm still low near the surface. So in other words, if I had left this PE like up here at 20K and then I killed off all my horizontal velocity, that's a long way to drop straight down to the surface. And it's not fuel efficient to do it that way. It's much more fuel efficient to burn off most of your horizontal velocity when you're near the surface. So 9K is just a nice round number. You know, you can practice this with different values. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to warp down to here. Remember, we don't want to land in the rim of a crater, which we see this big crater right here. So yeah, the terrain will be pretty well sloped all the way around that. And even the smaller craters like this one, and even these little individual craters like this will have sloped terrain near their rim. But we're just going to try to avoid that. Alright, so let me do this so you can see. So yeah, you can see here now we are dropping in altitude, but now more or less we're going horizontally across the surface also, right? You see what I mean? So I'm going to warp ahead a little bit more, and probably where we'll shoot for landing is kind of somewhere over here. So I'm on retro right now. I'm going to go ahead and do another small throttle retro burn. And I'm just going to pay attention to my blue trajectory. Let's look over here. Okay, right here we have an impact point right there. But actually, we're going to land well before. We're not going to wait until we actually get right there, right? So we're gonna kill off most of that velocity and then drop straight down from like right here, right, to the surface. So now we're kind of in this big crater. I'm going to warp ahead a little bit more. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to go to ship view so that we can see what's coming up ahead. But we still have this camera view, right? So I'm gonna retro burn just a little bit more, small amount of throttle. Then we'll get the camera flip. See, now we're burning. We're still burning. There's the camera flip. Cut throttle. And that the camera flip happens when you go suborbital. Now I'm going to roll the brown part of the nav ball on top. I'm going to pause that for a second. And the reason I roll this over like this is because that orients us to the dorsal side of the craft, which is where the hatch is. This is the dorsal. It's like the spine of your craft, right? When the brown part of the nav ball is on top like this. And what that does is when you make control inputs on your keyboard, the ship will move on screen to match your control inputs. Does that make sense? Yeah. Try it, and it will make sense to you. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. So we can see what's coming up ahead of us. So it looks like there's a crater right there. So I'm going to go ahead and start burning full throttle right now. I'm going to take this down to about 200. And actually I'm going to go to manual throttle, or manual SAS, excuse me. Okay, there's 200. Now we're still moving horizontally across the surface, but there's a crater coming up, so I'm going to keep burning. I'm on manual SAS, and look at the retrograde marker on the nav ball. See how it's moving away from us, away from the attitude indicator? And what I want to do is just keep burning and kind of follow that retro marker. Actually, what we're doing is pushing that retro marker up to the center of the blue on the nav ball. And when we get there, we cut throttle. Then we go to retrograde hold. When this retro marker is in the center of the blue on the nav ball, that means you're dropping straight down, which is what we want. We don't want any horizontal drift when we land, right? We want to be landing completely vertical. Now, I want to alternate Z and X. Oops. I want to alternate Z and X because that will keep our velocity from getting too high as we drop down. I don't want a constant burn, but just real quick, full throttle, cut throttle, and that will keep this number from getting too high. Oh, I'm out of fuel. Alright, let's go ahead and jettison that stage. A quick burst of full throttle like that. Cut throttle, and that will make that drop away. Let's put our landing gear down. We'll push G. G is in golf. But I'm still dropping straight down, right? Which is what I want. I'm still alternating Z and X. Watch that stage hit. Hopefully it doesn't bounce straight up and hit us. Nope. Completely destroyed. Okay? Now as I get lower, I will go to manual throttle to slow our descent rate, right? But don't burn so much that you start going back up, because that means you're wasting fuel. We are landing on a little bit of a slope here, but it should be manageable for us with this lander because we built it that way. There's our shadow. Whoa, okay, right there, cut throttle. There we go. So yeah, it's actually inclined pretty more than what I like normally, but yeah, because of the way we built that lander, it was no problem. But we're on the surface, so let's do science now. Let's do this Science Junior right here, and it will tell us what biome we're in. The lowlands. We are in the lowlands on the moon. But it's the first time that these experiments have been here also, so we can go ahead and do, open please. Go ahead and do our mystery goo. From the moon's lowlands. Do pressure from the lowlands. It's all going to be lowlands. Temperature from the lowlands. Good. Now, don't forget your crew report from the lowlands. Good. And let's go ahead and do EVA report. First, we right-click on the capsule, take data, EVA report from the lowlands. All right. Now let's put him back inside right quick, because at this point, I want to go back to mission control. I'm going to press escape, go back to the Space Center, because sometimes while you're on a mission, a contract will pop up that you can accomplish while you're on your current mission. So let's check back here. Orbit of Kerbin, tourist, rescue. So it doesn't look like it happened for us this time, but sometimes it does. So let's go back to our ship. So let's go ahead and plant a flag. We'll do EVA. We'll activate his jetpack, and then, or we'll let go and then activate his jetpack real quick. There he is. And there's Jeb on the moon. Yay! Here, let's go like about right there. Okay, now we're going to plant a flag. Right click on the Kerbal, we have a plant the flag right there, and I like to name my flag whatever biome we happen to be in. And so we know we're in the lowlands. Hello. Lowlands. There we go. Okay. Now, there is another science experiment that we can do, but we have to upgrade our R&D facility, and that science experiment is called surface sample. As you can see, there's no option here. We right click on the Kerbal. There's no option to take a surface sample. Now, the R&D facility for that first upgrade, it's 451,000. So we check our money here. We have 495. And I should have done this the first time, but let's go ahead and go back to the Space Center now and spend that cash. And we'll go ahead and upgrade the R&D right here. 451,000. That takes us all the way down to 44,000. But don't worry, you will make plenty of money in your career and make plenty more science. So yeah, go ahead and do the upgrade. Well, don't do that. Do this. Because, yeah, the surface sample is worth quite a bit of science. So now we right click on the Kerbal. We have an option now that says take surface sample. Now, sometimes if you come back to your Kerbal, you right click, the surface sample option is still not there, even after you do the upgrade. If that happens, just move your Kerbal a little bit on the surface. Then you can right click him, and then the surface sample option will be there. So we take the surface sample from the lowlands. It's worth 120 science. So yeah, not too bad. Now we're ready to get back inside, so let's zoom back in on him a little bit. Jetpack. Grab it, grab it. There you go. Get back inside. There we go. Now, to go home, what we're going to do first is get into orbit of the moon below 60K. Which is a new biome called Space Near the Moon. And we're going to do some orbital spacewalks and get some EVA reports. Just like we did at Kerbin, as we orbit over different biomes on the moon, we'll get EVA reports over those different surface biomes. And you can see we're leaned over a little bit. We're not taking off straight up, but we're just going to do a little bit of throttle and start going up, and then we'll go vertical, turn our SAS on. And what we want to do is tilt to the east, just like launching from Kerbin. So on our nav ball, the orange line is north. So east will be down here. That's the direction that we're going to tilt. And again, we're going to tilt over to about 45 degrees. So do not hit spacebar here because you will decouple and you'll be stranded. We want to throttle up. Alright, in 3, 2, 1, throttle up. Start tilting to the east to about 45 degrees, which is about right there. And I'm going to roll over so the nav ball looks just like it does when we launch from Kerbin. Right? See the east line? And I'm going to go back to the map. And I'm going to use a little bit more throttle. And I'm going to push that AP up to like 15,000. When it gets to 15, I'm going to cut my throttle right there. Then again, I'm just going to warp up to that AP. Something exploded. It's got me a little worried, paranoid, but yeah, what that was a piece of that lower stage that we dropped coming down. Sometimes it's just weird how things explode on the moon and whatnot. So yeah, it was nothing to worry about. We're still fine. So if you hear an explosion like that in your playthrough, yeah, don't worry about it. We're going to warp up to that AP, and we're going to tilt on over horizontal and start burning. And we don't need full throttle for this, because we have a really high thrust to weight ratio right now. Turn on stage view. Well, we don't need stage view. It's all one stage now. The AP's creeping ahead of us, so I'm going to tilt into the brown. Of the nav ball. The trajectory line starts wrapping around the moon. Throttle back. There's the PE. It all happens really quick. Cut throttle. AP and PE swap positions. We cut throttle, so we have a 16 by 26. Yeah, you see how quickly that AP climbed up there. But yeah, still more or less circular. But we're in a new biome now called Space Near the Moon. So it's time to do the final Science Junior, which is this one. Space Near the Moon, right? But it's also the first time that these experiments have been here, so let's do one copy of those experiments right now. Mystery Goo from Space Near the Moon. Pressure, Space Near the Moon. Temperature, Space Near the Moon. Don't forget your crew report, Space Near the Moon. And now we'll do the EVA reports as we orbit over the different surface biomes. So right now we are just above the moon's lowlands. Get back inside. So every one of these large craters on the moon is a separate biome. So let me focus camera on the moon. Okay, so it looks like we're going to be flying directly over the northern edge of this crater. EVA report. Just above the moon's east crater. That's the name of that crater. It's the east crater. And then there's also a biome called the moon's midland craters. And sometimes it's kind of hard to get, but I think this might give it to us right here. And it may not. We'll just have to see. EVA report from, nope, just the Midlands, not the Midland craters. But we don't care really. And we're not really passing over this crater here, so yeah, that won't do it. Let's go. Here's the next big crater that we'll pass over, right on the southern edge of that one. So let's try like right in here. And again, this may be called the Midlands, which we already have. EVA report, the Highlands actually. Okay, that's a new one, so we'll keep that. Let's just go ahead and go right here. Above that crater. That large crater, that is. And that is the moon's east far side crater. Okay. Keep that. Now, it's hard to see on the stream, I know, but there's a big canyon that comes off of the edge of this crater right here. Right here it is. And that is a separate biome called the canyons. And I don't know if we're actually going to get it or not. We'll try it. Let's go right about there. Looks like we're kind of a little bit too far south, but let's try it. Nope, it gave us the highlands. Yeah, we've already got the highlands, so we can reset that. And yeah, right there is the canyons, but yeah, we're not exactly over it. We're a little bit too far south of it. But that is a separate biome that you can do an EVA report. So let's go a little bit more. We'll try again, like right here, to try to get the Midland craters. Nope, just the Midlands. We've already got the Midlands. It's okay. We'll just go ahead and get it. And this crater also has a big canyon that comes off of the northern side of that crater, which is also the canyons. Canyons are canyons all over the moon, just like on Kerbin, water is water all over the planet. EVA report. The moon's far side crater. And I don't think we hit anything else. Yeah, that's all we'll worry about. So we need to go home. So to go home, we look at the moon with Kerbin in the background, right? Like that. We want our escape trajectory to be pointing to the left over here. So that means we need to do a prograde burn somewhere on this side. Because remember, orbital mechanics, we burn prograde anywhere around this orbit. The direct opposite side of the orbit expands out. So we'll do a maneuver, and it turns out where the optimal point to burn is a little bit past. Remember, we're orbiting in this direction. We want to maneuver a little bit past where the moon's orbit line is, so we'll put a maneuver right there. Let me zoom out just a little bit, and we'll just add some prograde. And when the gold line breaks open, right there, that is your escape trajectory. So we're looking at the moon, Kerbin in the background. Our escape trajectory is pointing to the left. Alright? So that's going to cost us 197 delta V. So I want to orient to the burn. Turn my SAS back on. To the dark blue marker right there. Good to go. And the maneuver's not that far ahead, so I'll just do a manual time warp. It says it's going to be a full throttle burn for 10 seconds. Okay. So here's the timer. 3, 2, 1, full throttle. Okay, so our actual flight path right now does not actually match what the prediction was. Which is okay. Just go ahead and delete your maneuver. It doesn't really matter. It's not that important at this point. We have lots and lots of fuel on purpose, right? We did that on purpose. However, before I forget, remember what I said that we needed to do? I need to EVA, and let me rotate the ship so that it's pretty much straight up and down. There. Yeah, we need to EVA and take the data from all of those Science Juniors, right? So let's do that. Let go. Activate the jetpack. Kind of zoom in a little bit. Just small burst on the jetpack. click, collect data, remove data. Now if you notice the because whenever you EVA, the SAS gets turned off by default, so our capsule is kind of tumbling right now just because I bumped into it and whatnot. But yeah, don't panic. It'll be fine. Just don't get out of control on your jetpack, and you'll be good to go. Alright, let's take the data out of this one. Collect data, remove data. And this warning message is just because Jeb is not a scientist. And that's just telling us if we remove the data, we cannot reuse the Science Junior in a new biome. But we don't really care. Collect data, remove data. Good. And I think we just have one more to go right here. Collect data, remove data. So I think that's all 4 of those. Let's go ahead and get back inside. Whoa. And the hatch is now way over here. Right there. And again, small burst on the jetpack. Grab it, get back, grab it, grab it, grab it. Get on board, go, go, go. There you go. Turn the SAS back on. Now I'm kind of paranoid, so I'm going to right click on each of the Science Juniors. And if we do not see a review data option, that means we collected the data. So no review data option, so we're good on that one. No review data option on that one. No review data option on that one. No review data option on that one. So that means we have successfully collected all the data from the Science Juniors. And we have one more set of experiments in here that we did not actually need. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that up. We have plenty of science on this trip, so don't worry. So let's just go ahead and actually what I want to do first, I want to double click on the planet. And I want to see what kind of trajectory we have. Is it pretty much equatorial? Yeah, it is. Not perfect, but yeah. I like to land on an equatorial trajectory just like when we launched or transferred out to the moon. Yeah. So we're looking good. So now let's just time warp and get back into Kerbin SOI. And the gold orbit line will turn blue when that happens. Just be patient with the time warp. There it is. Now we're back in Kerbin SOI. So as you can see, we're almost out the same distance as the moon. The moon's orbit distance, which is 11.4 million. But what I need is for my PE to be in the atmosphere, because what I want to do is I don't want to skip off the atmosphere. I want to re-enter on the first try. So I'm going to orient to retrograde right now. And I'm still pretty close to my AP, not right on it, but yeah, this is a fairly efficient place to lower your PE. The most efficient place is if we were right exactly on our AP, but we're not that far away from the AP, so we can burn retro right now and lower that PE pretty efficiently. So I'm going to lower that PE down to a window between 30 and 35,000. And what that does is that makes sure that we don't re-enter too steeply, but we will re-enter on the first try. In other words, we will not skip off the atmosphere and do another orbit. 30 to 35K. There's 39, 34. That's plenty good. So I'm going to go ahead and warp on down to about right here. And then I'll go ahead and jettison the lower part of our lander. Because remember, we do have a heat shield, and we will be coming in at about 3,200 meters per second when we hit the atmosphere, but yeah, don't worry about it. You have a heat shield, things will get hot, yeah, I know. We may see a little bit of overheating, in fact, but yeah, we're going to be fine. Now I'm going to go back to manual SAS control, and I'm going to orient sideways relative to our direction of travel. Just kind of jettison that thing off to the side, right? Then I'm going to go back to retrograde hold, like that. And at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and time warp on down to the atmosphere, which is 70,000. Right there it is. Let's see, where is that other piece? Right over there. Yeah, it's way far away from us, so no chance of an impact. And, you know, it's an astronomical chance that it would impact us anyway, but yeah, jettisoning off to the side, just kind of make sure. Okay, now we're starting to heat up, and we see right here 3182. So almost 3,200 meters per second. We have no overheating yet, though. Let's do full physical time warp and see if we get the overheating. No overheating at all. Okay, let's drop out of time warp. Let's take a look at our, look at our AP. Remember, our AP was way up here by the moon's orbit line. So we're looking good. No overheating at all. Looks like the bottom part of our lander broke apart. Oh, there's the camera flip. That means we're suborbital. We are going to land. No two ways about it. Well, once you have that PE set between 30 and 35K, you're going to land the first time. No two ways about that. It's just that camera flip is kind of what confirms it, you know. Let's see, where are we going to land? Looks like we'll probably fall short. We won't even make it to that little part that sticks out. Well, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. It's kind of hard to judge it sometimes. Now let's just go ahead and go full time warp. Yeah, now we're going to land over the land. Will we make it back out to the water? No. No, we don't. Still in full time warp. I'll wait till about 5,000, then I'll pop the chute. Looks like we're going to slam into the ground. Let's go to terrain level here on the altimeter. Yeah, it looks like we slam into the ground, but we don't. All the way down. Cut the time warp, and let's recover and see how much science we got. On that one flight, we scored 833.5 science. That brings a total up to 934. And we have a little bit more cash. Remember, we were all the way down to, I can't remember what it was. You can rewind the video and see. But the reason our cash came back up is because we have some world first milestones, which we got paid for. We can check that right here. Wait, it says contract complete. What contract? I didn't think. Did we have an Explore the Moon contract? I don't know. You'll have to rewind the video, and I'll go back and watch it too. I thought we did not have a contract when we left. Huh, that's weird. But anyway, this is what we want to see. The the World First Milestone payouts. Now remember, World First Milestones are the first time you accomplish a particular task uh, in your career. And just by going to the moon, we accomplished all these different things for the very first time in our career. And so, yeah, we get paid for these, and we get a bonus point of science or two from each one. So they add up. Alright, so at this point, we have just completed flight number 5 of a new career. We landed on the moon, came back, and now our career is officially kickstarting. In other words, we have lots of points of science to spend, so we can unlock whatever we want to unlock. But I will give you a quick spoiler. Just what you see, what we have unlocked here, the same parts that we used to build that moon rocket, we can build a rocket that will take tourists to the moon and land and come back. And we can easily build a Kerbin orbit rescue ship, a moon orbit rescue ship, or whatever happens to come up in the contracts. And we're going to take a look at that right now. Let me turn this off. Let's take a look at our contracts right now. Okay, nothing really pertaining to the moon that I see. However, no, just some rescue. Here's a tourist mission. Let's see what these tourists want. Actually, this is a moon contract. All they want is a flyby of the moon and suborbit flight of Kerbin. So there are contracts that pertain to the moon, but the point is there are plenty of other contracts here that you can do, these rescue missions and tourist missions. Like this tourist mission, is for Kerbin, probably. No, they actually want to land on the moon, so there are. See, what I was telling you is true. Now there are other contracts that do pertain to the moon. But you have all the parts to do pretty much all of these contracts right now. Remember, we still do not do survey or part test contracts, but these rescue from Kerbin orbit contracts, yeah, those are good to do because those Kerbals that you rescue get added to your roster for free versus having to go here and hire a new Kerbal. It costs $65,000 to hire a new Kerbal, but if you rescue one, they get added on this side for free to your roster. So yeah, it's beneficial to do the rescue mission early on in your career. So anyway, that wraps up the new career kickstart. Appreciate everyone joining, and yeah, hope you enjoy your new Kerbal career. Thanks everyone. Check you later.